Hi, everybody. Welcome to Lawless TV, the place to be if you want to get inspired to upgrade your career and change your life. And with me is a very dear friend of mine. Hi, Faith. How are you?
Hey, Andrew, doing well. Thank you. Hello.
Yeah, awesome. Great to have you here. So Faith is one of my fellow authors. We both went to the author incubator where we learned how to write books and build our coaching business around it, right? And
That's right.
successfully published your book, Parenting Like a Ninja. And we will go into that in a
Yeah.
moment because it's a very important topic because it deals with autism, how parents that have children that have autism deal with it. But you even go a step further, right? So you call yourself an intuitive strategist and you serve special needs businesses, right?
Yes,
So
I do.
tell me a little about your journey. How did you get there?
What happened with me, Andrew, is that I realized my typical workspace was not serving me after I had the diagnosis. I didn't have the energy or the capacity to do the things that were prescribed. And I stepped away from the workforce, but lost my energy. I needed the gratification of meaningful work. And so as I started my own business and met many families, I saw many women who are in the same situation, low motivation, low energy, lots of emotional mood challenges. A lot of it derived from just poor self-care and not meeting their needs. And entrepreneurship is a great solution to some
Yeah.
of these
And
self-care.
that's very interesting to me, right? Because shouldn't like because you were like an engineer, right,
Yeah.
in a corporation. So what happened? Did your employer not provide you with enough flexibility, or what prompted you to opt out of out of a corporate career?
Well, the first thing is that the emotional toll of the diagnosis has you feeling like you can't cope. So one, the workspace isn't flexible, but even negotiating for flexibility, asking for what you need, a lot of us just don't know because it feels like a bomb was detonated in your life when you get this diagnosis.
Of
So it
course,
just
right?
felt incompatible.
So tell me about that. That was your son, right? And
Yes.
how old was he when
He
he was
had
diagnosed?
2 years old. He was 2 years old.
Okay, so
But
and
we were
how did you?
testing from a year and a half. Yeah.
What happened? So how did you as a mother say like something is not right, or so how did you notice that you need to take action?
Yeah, he stopped talking. He was talking a bit, then he wasn't talking. He could respond to his name and instructions, and then he stopped responding to his instructions. And so the pediatrician said we should get him assessed for autism. And I thought, autism? No, the only thing I know about autism is Rain Man. But after we got the assessments done, basically they said, yes, for sure. He was not interested in the things that typical children are interested in, and he wasn't communicating. And he had, stereotypic behaviors, ways that he twirled his hands and things that he did that they felt were classic autism.
Yeah. So as a parent, I mean, like your kid's well-being is beyond measure to you, right?
Yeah.
God forbid, I remember when my son was my first son was born, right? And I was like, why is everybody still working? Jesus has arrived, right?
That's right.
And you would not like let anything, not the smallest scratch, happen to them. And
Yes.
so when you get a diagnosis like that, so what went on in your head?
Devastating, right? Because Andrew, at that time, I was an educator, as a professor at the college level, but I didn't know how to help my own child. I didn't know how to figure out what learning would look like for him. How would we help him to make basic steps? And I was really passionate about lifelong learning, and I was sure that my kids were going to be the kids who would break the mold on, bored learners in the classroom. But then I couldn't help my child to do this. So I had to mourn the loss of the child I thought I would have and figure out who is this child and what does he need. And so that was, I went into depression and then anxiety for quite a bit for a while.
So when you said that you went to lifelong learning, and then you realize what my son is never going to be a learner or will not learn as much, or did your dream
I didn't
shatter?
know. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, if my child can't perform in school in traditional ways, how would I even know he's learning? I think there's so many questions, so many ways that we have externalized these standards. And so suddenly he wasn't going to check off the boxes that I had learned to check off as a person who said, this is what learning looks like. And I had to recalibrate all of that for myself to be able to figure out how I would help him. What does learning even mean?
So then you got depressed as a result.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a double whammy, right? So did you, when you were depressed, was there a moment when you didn't care, at least for a while, for your son, or did you always care? You just quote unquote were depressed?
Yeah, I channeled depression was purely for me. But in terms of my interaction with him, it was always like, we're going to solve it, we're going to fix it, we're going to deal with it. But that itself leads to burnout. So there was internal depression, sadness, and then there was the burnout of putting effort into everything and anything to see if I could help him.
So, and how did you snap out of that?
When I got to a place where I actually had to just stop everything. I said, enough therapies, enough everything. I didn't feel good in how I was approaching it. And I didn't feel like he was happy. And something kind of came to me that said, it's better for him to be happy, even than for him to speak. And so as I stopped everything, then I really became clear on, if I were to do one thing for him, what would that one thing be? And gradually I built what I tell everybody is a Jaden program. I figured out and heard and listened internally to what would be good for him and did that, and then built a business around that. Because as I was doing it and feeling gratified, and people would ask me, hey, can I get some help with this and that? And then I developed it into a business.
So what were your 5 major moves? Right? I'm very interested in that, because you had this internal turnaround, right? Before we get there, actually, you had this turnaround. So you were depressed. So what made you snap out of it?
And it's interesting you say 5 moves, because I do direct my clients through some of these moves. I think the first step has to be the stop. I tell people it's the stop. It is this kind of, the world goes on, but I decide I'm planting my feet. And in the stopping, there was this listening and recalibrating and kind of minimalizing life down to its basics. Before then, I started to integrate.
So is that something that you need to find out yourself, or did others help you? Were others actually able to help you?
At that point in time, I think others can help someone, but I didn't get help from others initially. There was one teacher I remember who said to me, it's better for Jaden to be happy. But I'd already been on this path of like, I feel confused, right? So I had kind of decided overwhelm was taking over and I wasn't going to be good for my child. So I had to stop. And then having stopped, then I was able to hear the wise teachers that kind of took me down, helped me go down another path, which led to this reintegration, increased productivity. And yes, I do still deal with depression and anxiety, but with tools, with awareness, with learning from them versus being encumbered by them.
Okay, so in your estimation right now, is that what happens to everybody? Can that process be accelerated with coaching or therapy or any other means?
Yeah, I really feel that intervention, in New York, where I live, it's early intervention across the country, and they focus on the child. But I do think that intervention needs to happen with the parent first. And one of the first things is just really helping parents get clear that they are the leaders of their child's team and they have the wisdom. And a lot of this internal work, Andrew, that I know you and I've done, just to get clear as business owners, I think all parents need it. And so coaching, part of when I work with women, especially who are business owners, some of that work has to be done to really let go of the external validations in terms of your child and his development. Lots of women say to me they can't let their business grow because if they do all that's needed, their child might regress. So there's this tension, and coaching helps to resolve some of those crises so we can just flourish.
So when you started your own business, was that desperation because you realized that corporate is not going to support me in it, or was that a calling of some sort?
At that point, it felt like calling because I'd already decided corporate wasn't going to support me, and I was resolved to just bye-bye. I'll leave it alone. But internally, as I worked with my own family and have families reaching out to me, I realized that I would be more energized by making my pain count for others. So as I learned something, as I went through things, having formal ways of sharing that with others really was healing for me. And so the structure helped me have meaning and purpose in the discomfort and the pain and the challenge that we were living through.
So tell me about your business now. So it was a calling, and so what do you do?
Right now, so I'm integrating all of the good stuff I did before as a systems designer and as an engineer and as a learning specialist. And now I help businesses that are eclectic, that serve the special needs community or by the special needs community, really think of flexible ways to design their business, because businesses that we run have to honor the crazy and the complex of our lives. I could be in the emergency room in any minute. So the business structure and the business architecture has to respond to that and has to give space and give meaningful work to all of us while we care for chronic illnesses and everything like that. So strategic planning, business architecture, teamwork, just figuring these things out, but in different ways, not business as usual.
So how do you help? So who's coming to you in the first place, right? So are they actively reaching out to you? So because they have a history with it, or they just want to serve the community and do some good. So who's reaching out to you and why?
Typically, parents reach out to me when they have a business idea. Either they've started the business or the business is just in their heads and they're saying, but how do I make this happen together? And then at the next level, somebody may already have a business or they'd heard about me, and then they're asking for advice on, okay, so we're in this emerging stage where we're growing a little bit, but we need to keep all the pieces together and still honor ourselves. And sometimes in the growth process, challenging things are happening at home. And so then people reach out to me to kind of, how do we manage these challenges at home, given what's happening in the business place? And I help with that integration. Yeah. So how do I help? Usually it's a 1 day or half day experience with me as an initial. We kind of sit down and just listen to all the pieces and come up with a strategy to meet whatever the gap is. It's as I listen, listen for the gaps, and we prioritize the most important one across life, real life, home life, business life, and then we build a strategy for that. And then there could be ongoing support in executing on that strategy.
Yeah, and then that is so important to me, right? So it resonates. I have type 1 diabetes, right? And I've had it since age 9, and it didn't stop me from having a corporate career. I had executive positions, right, in multiple known organizations such as the World Bank or the Holzbrinck Publishing Group, which is the parent company of Scientific American, and so on. But it has always been a struggle, right, to take medication, measure my blood sugars, client meetings, 3-hour client meetings, my blood sugar drops, right? So what are you going to do? Yeah. Will you tell the client, right? Is it okay to go, right? My boss, the owner of a $3 billion company sitting next to me, right? So how do I communicate that? But I still had more flexibility than most people have, right?
Right.
Most people cannot store their insulin, so they cannot take a break. They cannot eat when when they need to, and so on. So I know how difficult that is. So your mission is so important, and you come to the conclusion that the best way to help people with those needs is in small businesses. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and I think what happens too is that as our kids get older, my son is 20. Many of the families are also thinking about meaningful work for the kids. And so there is this dual need for meaningful work for the family, create income flexibly, and then space in the workspace for a young adult who has lived years of feeling like he or she doesn't fit. And we're saying, no, we can actually have spaces where your skills can be used and your challenges can be honored.
Yeah. So how's your son today?
He's doing well. He still has a lot of impulse control issues, a lot of movement issues, and yet he's typing, and so he wants to write a book on anxiety. And he asked me how I created the outline for my book, so I'm supposed to be helping him. He doesn't speak reliably, but he is typing, and he gives me a lot of joy.
Yeah. Well, that makes me so glad to hear that. And I know that there are a lot of other parents out there that would love to be in your position. I know from parents in my own circle of friends that have children with Asperger's or autism, that their biggest worry is like, what happens when we die, right?
Absolutely.
How will they take care of it? So your mission cannot be more important. And so I really applaud you for doing that. I applaud you for taking a shock, and making it through depression and rising above it and making a difference to so many people out there. How can anybody here who's listening get in touch with you right now?
So you can go to my book site, parentinglikeaninja.com, because if you reach out there and I see your email address, I'll definitely reach back out to you.
Yeah, by the way, exactly. Sorry that I interrupted you. So by the way, yes, we will put it, depending on where you watch it, there, and anywhere, like in the comment box.
All the places. All the places.
So
all the places.
you're gonna put it there, right? So, but tell me again, so what's the website or what's the email?
Parentinglikeaninja.com, and email is faith@melodyofautism.com. Okay. So definitely either way, reach out.
And I heard you say earlier, before we prepped for this call, that you said like everybody who likes this video and comments on you will get a present. Tell me about that.
Well, I have a lovely little combo on how to manage your energy as a parent of a child with autism. And you'll get that with my book if you comment or like.
That is so generous of you, and that speaks to you as a mother, as a beautiful human being. And so thank you very much for your time and sharing your story. And you guys here, if you watch that, get in touch with Faith right now. And in the meanwhile, remember to live, to matter, and to stay amazing. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.